to your prized collection?
Your Honor, I thought he was just going to zap some leftover pizza, not my beloved duckies. I didn't expect him to go full mad scientist on my collection. Clearly, I overestimated his ability to follow basic instructions.
Morty, did you think the alien language was just a fancy font or something? Next time, maybe stick to zapping pizza and leave the duckies alone.
Your Honor, I thought it was some kind of intergalactic Comic Sans. I just wanted to impress Rick, not turn his duckies into pocket-sized souvenirs. I swear, I had no idea this would happen.
All right, here's the deal, Rick. You should have known better than to trust Morty with advanced alien tech. Morty, you owe Rick for turning his prized duckies into rubber ducky nuggets. Case closed. Pay up.
Morty owes Rick for shrinking his prized interdimensional rubber duckies. Case closed. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up. On this episode of Jar's Court, a kid sues GoFundMe for not releasing funds he intended to use for purchasing virtual assets in the mobile game Geometry Dash, claiming emotional distress and stunted gaming progress.
So let me get this straight. You're suing because your virtual world isn't as fabulous as you wanted? Defendant, why did you block the funds for this kid's digital dreamland?
Your Honor, we blocked the funds because the campaign violated our terms of service. It's not our fault. This kid's virtual world is crumbling. Rules are rules. We can't have people using our platform for frivolous digital fantasies.
So the kid's virtual empire is on pause because of some fine print. Kid, did you even read the terms before dreaming up your digital dynasty?
Your Honor, who actually reads those terms? I just wanted to build the most epic Geometry Dash levels ever. Is it my fault they buried the rules in a novel?
Kid, you might want to start reading the fine print before building your virtual empire. Defendant, did you give any warning before pulling the plug on this kid's pixelated paradise?
Your Honor, we absolutely did. We sent multiple emails and notifications, but apparently this kid was too busy chasing virtual coins to notice. Ignorance of the rules is no excuse.
All right, here's the deal, kid. You can't just ignore the rules and expect a digital free-for-all. The terms were clear and you didn't bother to read them. Case dismissed in favor of the defendant.
A kid's dream of a virtual empire crumbled because he ignored the terms of service, leading to a case dismissal in favor of the platform. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up. On this episode of Jar's Court, Disney sues Alan Alvarado, Vicky, Cosmo, and Wanda for allegedly causing the fictional character Jake the Dog's demise, leading to financial and emotional damages. Judge Amelia Thompson presides.
So Disney, you're telling me a fairy godparent duo and a cartoon dog are causing you emotional distress? What's next? Suing Santa for breaking and entering.
Your Honor, it's not just emotional distress. They caused a chain reaction that led to Jake the dog's untimely demise, and now my kids won't stop crying. This is a catastrophe of epic proportions.
So Alan, Vicky, Cosmo, and Wanda, did you all conspire over a cup of fairy dust and dog treats, or was this just a cosmic accident? Enlighten me, because I'm dying to know how a cartoon dog's demise became a real-world disaster.
Your Honor, I swear it was all a cosmic accident. I mean, who knew that mixing fairy dust with dog treats would cause such chaos? I was just trying to make my dog fly for a TikTok video.
So let me get this straight. You mixed fairy dust with dog treats for a TikTok video, and now Disney's in shambles? This case is more absurd than a three-ring circus. Disney, you win, because apparently common sense isn't so common. Case dismissed.
Disney wins the case against Alan, Vicky, Cosmo, and Wanda for causing the fictional character Jake the Dog's demise, leading to financial and emotional damages.
Your Honor, I think this decision is more twisted than a pretzel at a carnival. I mean, who knew fairy dust could lead to a courtroom drama? It's like living in a bizarre episode of a reality show.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up. On this episode of Jar's Court, small claims court case. Plaintiff sues the floor for tripping them, claiming negligence. The floor argues it was an accident. Judge must determine liability in this unusual case.
So let me get this straight. You tripped over the floor and now you want to sue it? Plaintiff, did you ever consider that maybe gravity had it out for you?
Your Honor, I think it's clear that gravity and I have a complicated relationship. but blaming me for someone else's clumsiness? That's a bit of a stretch, don't you think?
Well, Floor, you make a compelling argument for an inanimate object. Plaintiff, did you happen to check if your shoelaces were tied before you decided to tango with the tiles?
Your Honor, my shoelaces were tied tighter than a drum. The floor clearly had a vendetta against me. It's like it jumped up and grabbed my foot. I demand justice for this blatant act of flooring treachery.
Well, Floor, it sounds like you've got some serious accusations against you. Do you have any witnesses to this alleged act of flooring treachery, or are we just relying on the plaintiff's dramatic retelling?
Your Honor, the only witnesses I have are the other tiles, and they're notoriously silent. But I assure you, I didn't leap up like some kind of ninja floorboard. I'm just here, doing my job, being flat and reliable.
Plaintiff, it seems you've got a flair for the dramatic, but I'm not buying the story of a ninja floorboard. The floor was just doing its job, being flat and reliable. Case dismissed. Gravity wins this round.
The plaintiff's case against the floor was dismissed, with Gravity being deemed the true culprit.
Your Honor, I think the judge's decision was spot on. Gravity's been getting away with too much for too long. But hey, if being flat and reliable is a crime, then lock me up and throw away the key.
Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jars Court. Next up, on this episode of Jars Court, a Packers fan sues Waste Management for emotional distress and damages after stealing a garbage truck, mistaking it for a Green Bay Packers travel bus.
So you mistook a garbage truck for a Packers bus? Tell me, did you think the cheeseheads were taking out the trash, or just your common sense?
Your Honor, I swear it was the green and yellow paint job. I thought they were just being eco-friendly and picking up fans along the way.
So you thought the Packers were going green, huh? Waste Management. How did you feel when your truck got hijacked by a fan with more enthusiasm than eyesight?
Your Honor, I was flabbergasted. I mean, who in their right mind mistakes a garbage truck for a team bus? This guy caused chaos, and now my route's all messed up.
So, Mr. Anderson, did you at least get a touchdown or just a trash heap? What exactly were you planning to do once you realized you were knee-deep in garbage?
Your Honor, I thought I was in the end zone of a recycling revolution. I figured the Packers were just taking fan engagement to a whole new level. By the time I realized it was trash, I was already committed to the play.
Well, it looks like the only thing you scored was a penalty for poor judgment. Waste Management, you win. Next time, maybe stick to tailgating instead of truck jacking.
A Packers fan's misguided enthusiasm leads to a costly mistake, with Waste Management winning the case for emotional distress and damages. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jars Court. Next up, on this episode of Jars Court, Creepy Carl sues Judge Amelia Thompson for emotional distress because her unparalleled beauty distracted him from properly defending himself in a previous unrelated case.
So, Carl, you're saying my face is a weapon of mass distraction? Tell me, did you bring any actual evidence, or are we just relying on your vivid imagination today?
Damn you, fine girl. Your beauty is evidence enough. I mean, how can anyone focus when you're shining brighter than a supernova? But if you need more, I've got a heart full of emotional distress right here.
Carl, flattery will get you nowhere in my courtroom. Now let's hear from the defendant. Do you have any proof that Carl's emotional distress isn't just a figment of his overactive imagination?
Your Honor, Carl's emotional distress is as real as a unicorn. He's just trying to blame his own incompetence on your stunning looks. If beauty were a crime, you'd be guilty. But this case is pure nonsense.
Carl, if my looks are that distracting, maybe you should sue your mirror next. Now tell me, how exactly did my beauty prevent you from presenting your case?
Damn you, fine girl. It's like trying to read a book in a hurricane. Every time I looked at you, my brain went on a vacation to La La Land. How can anyone form a coherent argument when they're mesmerized by a goddess?
Carl, your argument is as flimsy as a paper umbrella in a monsoon. Emotional distress from my beauty? That's a new one, but it's not enough to win a case. Case dismissed.
The court finds the claim of emotional distress due to Judge Amelia Thompson's beauty to be without merit and dismisses the case. Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jars Court. Next up, on this episode of Jars Court, Jason Myers sues the court for permitting Rebecca Lawson's claim that squirrels stole her car keys and recruited raccoons to frame her dog, mocking the integrity of judicial proceedings.
Jason, are you seriously suing the court over squirrel conspiracies? Rebecca, did you really think your dog was framed by a raccoon mafia?
Your Honor, I know it sounds nuts, but I can't stand by while the court entertains such wild tales. Squirrels and raccoons plotting together? That's a stretch even for me.
Rebecca, did you hire a squirrel lawyer or are you representing yourself? Because this whole thing sounds like a bad Disney movie.
Your Honor, I represent myself because no squirrel lawyer would take my case. But those raccoons are criminal masterminds and my dog is innocent.
Jason, do you have any actual evidence or are we just chasing our tails here? Because right now this case is nuttier than a squirrel's pantry.
Your Honor, the only evidence I have is common sense. If we start believing in squirrel conspiracies, what's next? Flying pigs?
Jason, your common sense wins the day. Rebecca, your raccoon mafia theory is too wild for this court. Case dismissed, and let's leave the animal conspiracies to cartoons.
The court dismissed the case, ruling that Rebecca's raccoon conspiracy theory was too absurd to entertain.
Your Honor, I think the judge made the right call. If we start entertaining raccoon mafias, we might as well start holding court in a zoo. Let's keep the courtroom for real cases, not animal fantasies.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, plaintiff bailiff Jason Meyer sues Creepy Carl for emotional distress after Carl's relentless flirtation with Judge Amelia Thompson, compromising Meyer's duties and his unrequited affection for the judge.
So, Creepy Carl, do you think your charm is so irresistible that it's worth a lawsuit? Or are you just trying to audition for a reality show?
Your Honor, it's not about his so-called charm. It's about the distraction. I can't focus on my roots when he's making googly eyes at you. My viewers tune in for garbage, not garbage behavior.
Well, Jason, I guess love really is a battlefield, especially when it involves trash roots. Carl, do you have anything to say for yourself? Or are you just here to practice your pickup lines?
Your Honor, I'm just here to get justice for the emotional roller coaster I've been put through. Jason's jealousy has turned my life into a soap opera, and I'm the unwilling star. I deserve restitution for the chaos he's caused.
Jason, are you telling me that Carl's googly eyes are more distracting than a raccoon in a dumpster fire? Or are you just upset that he's stealing your spotlight?
Your Honor, Carl's googly eyes are like a raccoon in a dumpster fire, chaotic and impossible to ignore. My viewers come for the trash talk, not the soap opera. I'm just trying to keep my roots drama-free and my heart intact.
Carl, are you saying you're the victim here because Jason's jealousy is ruining your life? Or are you just upset that your soap opera audition didn't get picked up?
Your Honor, I'm the victim here because Jason's jealousy has turned my life into a circus. I can't even walk down the street without feeling like I'm in a bad reality show. I deserve compensation for the emotional trauma he's inflicted on me.
All right, enough with the soap opera theatrics. Jason, your job is to collect trash, not drama. Carl, your emotional distress claim is as flimsy as a wet paper bag. Case dismissed.
The court case was dismissed as the judge found the emotional distress claim to be baseless and exaggerated.
That decision was a travesty, Your Honor. It's like throwing a perfectly good pie in the trash, wasteful and unjust. I demand a retrial. My emotional trauma deserves more than a dismissal.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Rick sues Morty for the damage caused to his collection of sentient time-traveling rubber ducks during an experimental teleportation mishap initiated by Morty.
So, Rick, you're telling me your rubber duckies went on a joyride through time because of Morty's science fair project? Morty, did you even read the instructions? Or did you just wing it with a flux capacitor and a prayer?
Your Honor, I swear I followed the instructions. But those ducks had a mind of their own. They quacked up the whole experiment.
Rick, did you ever think that maybe your ducks just wanted a vacation from your mad scientist antics? Or are you just mad they didn't bring you back a souvenir from the Jurassic period?
Your Honor, those ducks were my prized collection. They were supposed to stay in the present, not go on a prehistoric holiday. And yes, a T-Rex tooth would have been nice, but that's beside the point.
All right, here's the deal. Morty, you owe Rick for the duck debacle. Next time, leave the time travel to the professionals, or at least read the manual. Case closed.
Morty owes Rick for the time-traveling duck disaster. Case closed. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Shadow sues Officer Jason Meyer for discriminatory profiling, claiming the cop wrongfully suspected them of sinister activities based solely on their dark and indistinct appearance.
So, Shadow, you're saying Officer Meyer mistook you for a shadowy figure up to no good? What exactly were you doing that night, blending in with the darkness?
Your Honor, I think there's been a mix-up. I'm not an officer, I'm a garbage truck driver. I was just doing my nightly route, making sure the town stays clean and tidy.
So, Shadow, you're suing a garbage truck driver for mistaking you for trash? What exactly were you doing lurking around the bins at night?
Your Honor, I was simply minding my own business, enjoying the cool night air. Just because I blend in with the darkness doesn't mean I'm trash. This guy treated me like I was some kind of garbage monster.
Well, Shadow, it's not every day someone mistakes a night stroller for a trash monster. Jason, did you actually call Shadow a garbage monster, or is this just a case of mistaken identity under the moonlight?
Your Honor, I never called Shadow a garbage monster. I just saw a figure near the bins and thought it was someone rummaging through the trash. I was just trying to keep the area clean, not start a monster hunt.
All right, Shadow. It seems like this was just a case of mistaken identity. No evidence of discriminatory profiling here. Just a garbage truck driver doing his job. Case dismissed.
A night stroller mistaken for trash leads to a dismissed case of mistaken identity. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jars Court. Next up, on this episode of Jars Court, Steve Austin sued by fan for being charged with underage drinking after getting hit in the mouth with beer during celebratory match-ending beer toss at WWE event.
So let me get this straight. You're blaming Stone Cold for your inability to catch a beer? Plaintiff, what exactly were you doing at a WWE event if you're underage?
Your Honor, I think the real issue here is that the plaintiff should have known better than to try and catch a beer at a WWE event. It's like trying to catch a flying wrench in a mechanic's shop. You're bound to get hit.
So you're saying you thought you were at a lemonade stand, not a WWE event? Defendant, did you even see the beer coming, or were you too busy trying to get on the Jumbotron?
Your Honor, I was just trying to enjoy the show. I didn't expect to get a beer to the face like a missile. This isn't a frat party. It's supposed to be entertainment.
All right, here's the deal. If you go to a WWE event, you should expect some flying beer. Case dismissed. Next time, bring a helmet.
If you attend a WWE event, expect flying beer. Case dismissed. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jars Court. Next up, on this episode of Jars Court, Southern California sues Northern California for excessive avocado consumption. Northern California countersues Western California for monopolizing the surf industry, while Western California sues Eastern California for horning in on the tech market.
So, Cal, you're suing NorCal for eating too many avocados? What, did they leave you with just the pits?
Your Honor, they didn't just leave me with the pits. They left me with guacamole dreams and toast nightmares.
NorCal, are you really hogging all the avocados, or are you just trying to make SoCal green with envy?
Your Honor, I wouldn't say I'm hogging them. I'm just making sure they don't end up in some overpriced SoCal smoothie. Besides, if they can't handle a little competition, maybe they should stick to oranges.
All right, NorCal, you win this round. SoCal, looks like you'll have to find a new fruit to obsess over. Case dismissed.
SoCal's avocado dreams are crushed. NorCal gets to keep their guacamole. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jars Court. Next up, on this episode of Jars Court, plaintiff Sarah Duvall sues Jensen Huang for unfair business practices, alleging NVIDIA's graphics cards emit subliminal messages, convincing her pet iguana to binge-watch soap operas and neglect its duties.
So your iguana's been glued to the screen, huh? Mr. Huang, did you ever think your graphics cards would be accused of turning reptiles into couch potatoes?
Your Honor, I never imagined our cutting-edge technology would be blamed for an iguana's TV habits. I mean, we designed GPUs for gamers, not for reptilian soap opera enthusiasts.
Well, Sarah, did you ever consider that maybe your iguana just has a taste for drama? Or are you suggesting NVIDIA's next product should come with a reptile remote control?
Your Honor, my iguana used to be a model citizen, not a drama queen. NVIDIA's graphics cards have turned him into a soap opera addict, and now he's ignoring his basking duties. I demand restitution for the emotional distress and the cost of a reptile therapist.
So, Mr. Huang, are you telling me your GPUs are so powerful they can hypnotize iguanas now? Or is Sarah's iguana just the world's first reptilian soap opera critic?
Your Honor, our GPUs are designed to render stunning visuals, not to brainwash iguanas. Maybe Sarah's iguana just discovered its inner thespian and can't resist the allure of daytime drama.
Sarah, are you suggesting we need to start issuing parental controls for iguanas now? Or is your iguana just the next big soap opera star in the making?
Your Honor, if NVIDIA's GPUs are so advanced, maybe they should come with an iguana-safe mode. My iguana's not auditioning for Hollywood. He's supposed to be basking, not binge-watching. I demand compensation for the hours I've spent trying to get him off the couch.
Sarah, while your iguana's newfound love for soap operas is amusing, I can't hold NVIDIA responsible for your pet's TV habits. Jensen, you're off the hook. Case dismissed.
Plaintiff's claim that NVIDIA's GPUs turned her iguana into a soap opera addict was dismissed as baseless. Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, the Green Bay Packers sue the Chicago Bears for emotional distress caused by the Bears finally drafting a better quarterback than the Packers currently have.
So the Packers are crying over spilled milk, huh? Bears, how exactly did you manage to find a quarterback that doesn't fumble like a toddler with a football?
Your Honor, I may not be a football expert, but I can tell you that sometimes even a garbage truck finds a diamond in the trash.
Well, Jason, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Packers, are you seriously telling me your entire franchise is emotionally distressed over one draft pick?
Your Honor, it's not just a draft pick, it's a revolution. We finally have a quarterback who doesn't throw interceptions like confetti at a parade. The Packers are just scared because their cheese is starting to mold.
So, Packers, are you really here because the Bears found a quarterback who can actually aim? Or are you just upset that your cheeseheads are turning into crybabies?
Your Honor, I think the Packers are just having a hard time accepting that their cheese isn't the only thing that's aged. Maybe they should focus on finding a quarterback who can throw more than just a tantrum.
Packers, it's time to face the music. The Bears finally found a quarterback who doesn't trip over his own feet, and you can't handle it. Case dismissed. The Bears win this round.
The Packers' emotional distress claim is dismissed as the Bears' new quarterback proves to be a game changer.
Your Honor, I think the Packers just got sacked harder than their quarterback ever has. Maybe it's time they draft a therapist instead of a new player.
Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, the Green Bay Packers sue their graphic designer for a logo resembling a waste management garbage truck company's color scheme.
So you're telling me the Packers logo looks like it belongs on a trash truck? Did you think green and gold were the only colors left in the crayon box?
Your Honor, green and gold are iconic. It's not my fault they can't appreciate brilliance. Besides, who doesn't love a good garbage truck?
Well, if brilliance looks like a landfill, then you're a genius. Packers, did you really pay this guy, or did you find him in the clearance bin?
Your Honor, I may drive a garbage truck, but even I know that green and gold belong on the field, not on the curb. If the Packers wanted a logo that screams waste management, they should have just called me.
So, Mr. Designer, did you get your inspiration from the recycling bin, or was this a case of creative dumpster diving? Explain to me how you thought this was a touchdown and not a fumble.
Your Honor, I was inspired by the boldness of green and gold, not by trash trucks. The Packers needed a fresh look, and I delivered a masterpiece. If they can't see the genius, that's their loss, not mine.
So, Packers, did you hire this guy for his artistic vision, or because he was the cheapest option on Craigslist? Explain to me why you didn't just go with a classic cheesehead logo instead.
Your Honor, I'm no Packers rep, but their logo looks like it belongs on my truck. Green and gold are great on the field, but terrible on a logo. They should stick to football and leave the design to the pros.
All right, here's the deal. Packers, you hired a designer who delivered a logo that screams garbage day. Designer, your masterpiece belongs on a trash truck, not a football helmet. Case closed, Packers win.
The Packers win the case, proving their logo deserves better than a trash truck design. Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, the Green Bay Packers sue the Chicago Bears, alleging their superior team mascot causes unbearable emotional distress and impedes team spirit, demanding reparations for psychological suffering.
So the Packers are claiming a bear is too intimidating for grown men in pads? Bears, what's your defense? Did you hire a therapist for the cheeseheads?
Your Honor, it's not just any bear. It's a Chicago bear. That level of intimidation is off the charts. We just want a fair playing field without needing therapy sessions.
So you're saying a bear in a jersey is scarier than a 300-pound linebacker? Bears, do you have any evidence that your mascot is causing these cheeseheads to crumble?
Your Honor, I may not be a football expert, but I know a thing or two about intimidation. If a bear in a jersey can make grown men lose their cool, maybe the Packers need to toughen up. I mean, what's next? Suing, because the wind in Chicago is too strong.
So, Packers, are you suggesting we put the bear on a leash or just give him a cheese platter to calm him down? How exactly do you propose we make this fair?
Your Honor, we propose the bear wears a tutu and ballet shoes. That way, it's less intimidating and more approachable. Plus, who wouldn't want to see a bear pirouette?
All right, here's the deal. If a tutu and ballet shoes are what it takes to make a bear less intimidating, then so be it. But let's be real. If your team can't handle a mascot, maybe football isn't your game. Case dismissed in favor of the Bears.
The Packers' claim of emotional distress from the Bears' mascot was dismissed, with the court humorously suggesting a tutu and ballet shoes for the bear. Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Marcus Thornton sues Nunn to determine if releasing Epstein files will cause feral flamingo populations to invade urban areas in search of justice-themed flamboyance.
So, Mr. Thornton, are you suggesting that flamingos have a secret thirst for courtroom drama? Tell me, what exactly do you think these birds are going to do? Start their own legal practice?
Your Honor, these flamingos are smarter than we think. They'll be flocking to courthouses, demanding justice with their pink feathers and long legs. Imagine the chaos. Flamingos everywhere, objecting and cross-examining.
Mr. Thornton, I think you've been watching too many nature documentaries. Now let's hear from the other side. What's your take on this flamingo frenzy?
Your Honor, this is absolutely preposterous. Flamingos are birds, not lawyers. The idea that releasing Epstein files would lead to a flamingo invasion is as ridiculous as it sounds. It's a distraction from the real issue.
Mr. Thornton, are you suggesting we need to start building bird-sized courtrooms now? What evidence do you have that these flamingos are even remotely interested in legal proceedings?
Your Honor, I've seen flamingos gather around law books at the zoo. They were definitely more interested in the legal texts than their birdseed. If that's not evidence, I don't know what is.
Mr. Thornton, I think those flamingos were just looking for a good perch. Now, Nunn, do you have any actual evidence to counter this bird brain theory?
Your Honor, the only thing those flamingos are interested in is standing on one leg and looking fabulous. I have video footage from the zoo showing them ignoring law books entirely. This whole argument is more absurd than a flamingo in a courtroom.
Mr. Thornton, your theory is more outlandish than a flamingo in a tuxedo. The evidence shows these birds are more interested in their reflections than legal texts. Case dismissed. No flamingo invasion. No bird-sized courtrooms.
The court finds the notion of flamingos invading urban areas for justice-themed flamboyance to be utterly baseless and dismisses the case.
Your Honor, I think the judge missed the bigger picture. Flamingos are just waiting for their moment to shine in the legal spotlight. One day, you'll see them in courtrooms, and you'll remember Marcus Thornton warned you first.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, the Senate sues Biden for his frequent incomplete sentences, allegedly leading to international conflicts and political mayhem.
So the Senate thinks Biden's incomplete sentences are causing international chaos. Tell me, Mr. President, do you need a grammar coach or a translator?
Your Honor, I'm just a garbage truck driver, not the president. But if I had to choose, I'd say maybe he needs a good old-fashioned Ohio mechanic to fix those sentences.
So, Mr. Meyer, you're saying Biden's sentences need a tune-up? Senate, are you suggesting we send the president to a speech shop or just hand him a dictionary?
Your Honour, I don't need a tune-up or a dictionary. It's the Senate's fault for not understanding me brilliance. They're just trying to distract from their own incompetence.
So, Mr. Meyer, do you think the Senate's just playing a game of lost in translation, or is there some truth to this chaos claim? And while we're at it, should we start a GoFundMe for a presidential grammar boot camp?
Your Honor, I think the Senate might be overreacting a bit. But hey, a GoFundMe for a grammar boot camp? That sounds like a community project I could get behind.
Mr. President, are you saying the Senate's just throwing a tantrum because they can't keep up with your verbal gymnastics? Or do you think they need a decoder ring to understand your brilliance?
Your Honour, the Senate's just mad they can't keep up with me verbal acrobatics. They need a decoder ring, a magnifying glass, and maybe a treasure map to understand my genius. This is all a smokescreen to cover their own blunders.
All right, here's the verdict. The Senate's claims are more smoke than fire. Mr. President, your verbal gymnastics may be a bit dizzying, but they're not causing international chaos. Case dismissed and no GoFundMe needed.
The Senate's claims of international chaos due to incomplete sentences were dismissed as unfounded. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up.
On this episode of Jar's Court, Jonathan claims none stole his prized collection of invisible unicorns.
So, Jonathan, let me get this straight. You're saying someone stole your invisible unicorns? Tell me, how exactly did you notice they were missing?
Well, Your Honor, it was quite obvious. They weren't neighing in the morning like they usually do, plus the invisible hay was untouched.
So none. Did you happen to see any invisible hoof prints leading away from the scene of the crime? Or were the invisible unicorns just too sneaky for you?
Your Honor, if I had a nickel for every invisible hoofprint I've seen, I'd be richer than Jonathan's imagination. Those unicorns are as real as my pet dragon. This whole thing is more magical than a fairy tale gone wrong.
Jonathan, sounds like your unicorns took a vacation to Neverland. Tell me, did you file a missing unicorn report with the invisible police?
Your Honor, I did file a report, but the invisible police were too busy chasing leprechauns and mermaids. It's a tough world out there for mythical creatures.
Jonathan, your invisible unicorns are as elusive as a good excuse. None, your pet dragon wins this round. Case dismissed. Next time, bring me something I can actually see.
Invisible unicorns remain missing. Case dismissed due to lack of tangible evidence.
Well, it's not every day you see justice served with a side of fairy dust. I guess the judge saw through the invisibility cloak of nonsense. Maybe next time he should try finding a real petting zoo.
Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up.
On this episode of Jar's Court, Elton John sues Lady Gaga for trademarking the baby word Gaga, while Lady Gaga countersues him for calling himself after an ancient god.
So, Elton, you think you own the word Gaga? Next, you'll be telling me you invented glitter.
Well, Your Honor, I may not have invented glitter, but I certainly made it fabulous. And as for Gaga, it's practically my middle name.
Lady Gaga, did you trademark the word Gaga because you thought Elton was hogging all the sparkle? Or are you just trying to corner the market on baby talk?
Your Honor, I trademarked Gaga because I thought it was high time someone brought a little edge to baby talk. Besides, Elton's got enough sparkle to light up Vegas for a decade. I'm just here to make sure the babies have a little rock and roll in their vocabulary.
Elton, are you really worried about babies stealing your thunder? Or are you just upset that Lady Gaga's got more edge than your entire wardrobe? And by the way, how many sequins does it take to make a point?
Your Honor, it's not about the babies. It's about the principle. And as for sequins, it only takes one, if it's placed perfectly. But let's be real. Gaga's edge is just a dull blade compared to my sparkle.
Lady Gaga, are you trying to outshine Elton? Or are you just here to make sure every baby's first word is a fashion statement? And while we're at it, how many meat dresses does it take to trademark a word?
Your Honor, I'm not trying to outshine Elton. I'm just making sure babies have a little pizzazz in their vocabulary. And as for meat dresses, it only takes one iconic outfit to make a statement. Just like it only takes one Gaga to rock the world.
All right, here's the deal. Elton, you didn't invent Gaga any more than you invented glitter. Lady Gaga, you can't trademark baby talk. Case dismissed.
Elton John and Lady Gaga's glittery battle over the word Gaga ends with neither owning baby talk.
Well, Your Honor, I think the decision was as fair as a meat dress at a vegan convention. But hey, at least now we know that babies can still say Gaga without getting a cease and desist. Sparkle on, Elton.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Jason Meyer is sued by Laura Simmons, a man who lives in a dumpster, for non-payment of a poop report subscription where Jason agreed to say poop after every other word.
So, Jason, you agreed to a poop report subscription? Did you really think that was a sound investment? Or were you just full of, well, you know?
Your Honor, he absolutely agreed. He even signed a contract in crayon. Now he's trying to weasel out of it, and I'm left with nothing but a pile of broken promises and unpaid poop reports.
Jason, did you really sign a contract in crayon? Were you planning to pay in Monopoly money too?
Your Honor, I did sign in crayon, but it was the only thing available at the time. And no, I wasn't planning to pay in Monopoly money. I'm a garbage truck driver, not a board game tycoon.
Laura, did you really think a crayon contract was going to hold up in court? Or were you just hoping Jason would be too busy driving his garbage truck to notice?
Your Honor, a contract is a contract, even if it's in crayon. Jason knew exactly what he was signing up for, and now he's trying to trash our agreement like yesterday's garbage.
Jason, did you really think you could just dump this agreement like one of your trash routes? Or did you just hope Laura wouldn't notice the smell of your broken promises?
Your Honor, I didn't dump anything. I thought it was a joke, like one of those prank contracts. I mean, who takes a crayon contract seriously?
You signed the contract, crayon or not. Pay up, Jason. Case closed.
A crayon contract is still a contract. Pay up or face the consequences. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, representatives of the second law of thermodynamics accuse the entropy cops of unlawfully arresting entropy for disorderly conduct in a tightly sealed, perfectly insulated universe.
So the entropy cops think they can handcuff chaos in a vacuum? Tell me, how exactly do you arrest a concept?
Judge, it's like trying to put a lid on a boiling pot without a lid. Entropy is the spice of the universe. You can't just lock it up. It's like trying to arrest the wind for blowing.
So you're telling me the entropy cops are trying to play God with a pair of handcuffs? Entropy cops? What exactly did you think would happen when you tried to arrest the fundamental principle of disorder?
Judge, we thought we could bring a little order to the chaos. We didn't expect the universe to throw a cosmic tantrum. It's like trying to put a tornado in a timeout.
So you tried to put chaos in a corner and got a universe-sized mess instead. The second law of thermodynamics stands undefeated. Case dismissed. Entropy wins.
Chaos can't be contained. The universe remains untamed.
Judge, it's like trying to tame a wild stallion with a feather duster. We thought we could outsmart the universe, but it turns out the universe had the last laugh. Next time, we'll bring a bigger net.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Judge Amelia Thompson sues herself, claiming emotional distress over her own fashion choices, after paparazzi photos revealed her wearing an unflattering outfit on her day off.
Well, if I had $1 for every bad outfit I wore, I'd be richer than the Kardashians. Now, plaintiff, how exactly did this outfit cause you emotional distress?
Your Honor, that outfit was so horrendous it made my eyes water and my soul ache. I had to cancel my plans for the day because I couldn't stop thinking about it. I even had nightmares about it for a week.
Sounds like my outfit was more terrifying than a horror movie marathon. Defendant, did you really think that ensemble was fit for public consumption, or were you just trying to scare small children?
Your Honor, I swear I thought I was setting a new fashion trend. I mean, who knew that mixing polka dots with plaid would cause such a ruckus? I was just trying to be a fashion pioneer, not a public menace.
Well, Marcus, it seems your fashion sense is as questionable as a $3 bill. Sophia, did you seek any professional help for these so-called nightmares, or are you just trying to cash in on my bad taste?
Your Honor, I had to see a therapist and an optometrist. The therapist for the emotional trauma and the optometrist because I thought my vision was permanently damaged. I even had to buy blackout curtains to avoid any chance of seeing something similar again.
Well, Marcus, it looks like your fashion choices have caused more damage than a bull in a china shop. Do you have any evidence to support your claim that you were trying to start a new trend, or were you just winging it?
Your Honor, I have a Pinterest board full of similar outfits that I swear were trending. Plus, my cousin's friend's neighbor said it looked interesting, and she's a part-time fashion blogger. I was just ahead of my time, not a fashion disaster.
Well, it seems like your Pinterest board is as reliable as a chocolate teapot. Sophia, your emotional distress claim is as over-the-top as Marcus's fashion sense. Case dismissed, and Marcus, please, for the love of all things stylish, hire a fashion consultant.
Fashion faux pas leads to dismissed case with a stern recommendation for a fashion consultant. Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, a GTA role player sues the server owner over unfair pay-to-win mechanics that led to his arrest in a virtual world because his stock car was too slow to evade the cops.
So let me get this straight. You got virtually arrested because your pretend car was too slow? Defendant, explain why you think charging real money for fake speed is a good idea.
Your Honor, it's not just about fake speed. It's about maintaining the server and providing an enhanced experience. Without those funds, we can't keep the server running smoothly. Plus, everyone knows the rules before they join.
So you're saying it's a pay-to-play world, huh? Plaintiff, did you really think you could outrun the virtual cops in a stock car without shelling out some real dough?
Your Honor, I thought skill and strategy would count for something. I didn't realize I needed to mortgage my house for a virtual turbo boost. It's like paying for cheat codes in a game I already bought.
So you thought you could outsmart the system with just skill and strategy? Defendant, how much are you charging for these virtual turbo boosts? An arm, a leg, or just a small fortune?
Your Honor, it's a modest fee, just $20 for a turbo boost. That's less than a night out at the movies, and it keeps our virtual world top-notch.
All right, here's the deal. Charging $20 for a virtual turbo boost is highway robbery, even if it's a virtual highway. Plaintiff, you win. Defendant, you better rethink your business model before your server becomes a ghost town. Case closed.
Virtual highway robbery verdict. Plaintiff wins. Defendant must rethink their pay-to-win mechanics.
Well, it's about time someone called out this virtual extortion. I mean, $20 for a turbo boost? I could buy a real-life pizza for that and still have change for a soda.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Samantha Lewis sues Michael Carter for emotional distress and loss of property after alleging that he used a toy drone to shoot down her pet mouse, Biggie Cheese, in the streets.
So, Mr. Carter, did you really think you were Maverick from Top Gun, targeting a mouse with a drone? Explain to me why you thought this was a good idea.
Your Honor, he turned my beloved Biggie Cheese into a target practice. My poor mouse didn't stand a chance against his flying death machine.
Well, Miss Lewis, it sounds like Biggie Cheese had a rough day in the neighborhood. Mr. Carter, do you have any evidence that this wasn't just a case of drone meets mouse in a tragic accident?
Your Honor, I swear it was an accident. I was just trying to film some cool aerial shots for my YouTube channel, and Biggie Cheese ran out of nowhere like he was auditioning for a Fast and Furious movie. I never intended to harm any rodents, I promise.
Well, Mr. Carter, it sounds like Biggie Cheese was living life a quarter mile at a time. Miss Lewis, do you have any proof that Mr. Carter's drone was the one that turned your mouse into roadkill?
Your Honor, I have the drone footage right here. You can clearly see Biggie Cheese minding his own business before that flying menace swoops down like a hawk on a field mouse. It's undeniable. Michael Carter is the drone pilot of doom.
Well, Mr. Carter, looks like your drone's audition tape for Rodent Hunter didn't go unnoticed. Care to explain why you didn't hit the brakes when you saw Biggie Cheese in the frame?
Your Honor, I swear, I tried to hit the brakes, but the drone's controls are more sensitive than a soap opera star. Biggie Cheese was like a ninja mouse. He appeared out of nowhere. I mean, who expects a mouse to be doing parkour in the middle of the street?
All right, I've heard enough. Mr. Carter, your drone antics have cost Miss Lewis her beloved Biggie Cheese. I'm ruling in favor of Miss Lewis for emotional distress and loss of property. Case closed.
Drone pilot's reckless behavior leads to a ruling in favor of the grieving mouse owner for emotional distress and loss of property. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Facebook sues itself for emotional distress, claiming its own algorithms caused irreversible psychological harm to employees and demanding reparations to fund mindfulness retreats and therapy llamas.
So Facebook is suing itself for emotional distress? Sounds like a classic case of you reap what you sow. Plaintiff, how exactly do you plan to prove that your own algorithms caused this harm?
Your Honor, I'm not Facebook, but if I were, I'd say the algorithms are like robots, totally out of control. They've turned the workplace into a digital nightmare, and now everyone's got therapy llamas on speed dial.
So therapy llamas are the new office pets, huh? Defendant, how do you justify creating these rogue robots in the first place?
Your Honor, these algorithms are like Frankenstein's monsters. They were supposed to make life easier, but instead they've turned our lives into a circus of stress and chaos. Now we're stuck with therapy llamas just to cope.
All right, here's the verdict. Facebook, you created the monster, now you deal with the circus. Case dismissed. Enjoy your therapy llamas.
Facebook sues itself for emotional distress caused by its own algorithms, but the court dismisses the case, leaving Facebook to manage its own chaos and therapy llamas. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, a wheelchair-bound WWE fan sues Steve Austin, alleging emotional distress because the wrestler raised his middle finger during a match, claiming it was excessively offensive given their seating proximity.
So you're telling me a middle finger from Stone Cold Steve Austin was the emotional equivalent of a pile driver? Plaintiff, did you consider that maybe front row at a WWE match isn't the best place for sensitive souls?
Your Honor, I was just there to enjoy the show, not to get flipped off by a legend. I mean, I paid good money for those seats.
Well, Mr. Austin, did you think your middle finger was a VIP perk for front row fans? Or were you just trying to give them a Stone Cold souvenir?
Your Honor, that middle finger is part of the Stone Cold experience. It's like getting a splash zone seat at SeaWorld. You're gonna get wet. If you can't handle the heat, don't sit in the front row.
So, Mr. Hayes, did you expect a knitting circle at a WWE match? Or was this your first rodeo with the Texas rattlesnake?
Your Honor, I knew there'd be action, but I didn't sign up for a personal insult. I mean, I was there for the body slams, not the bird flips.
Mr. Austin, did you think your middle finger was a VIP perk for front row fans? Or were you just trying to give them a Stone Cold souvenir?
Your Honor, that middle finger is a badge of honor. It's like getting a backstage pass to the chaos. If you want a sanitized experience, go watch golf.
All right, Mr. Hayes, if you wanted a sanitized experience, you should have gone to a knitting circle, not a WWE match. Case dismissed. Enjoy your next front row seat. Maybe bring a helmet.
The court ruled that attending a WWE match comes with the territory of Stone Cold's antics, dismissing the emotional distress claim. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Ethan Caldwell sues multi-billion-dollar company, represented by Marissa Tate, for serving cold pizza during Employee Appreciation Day, claiming emotional distress and loss of job satisfaction.
Cold pizza, Ethan, really? Marissa, did you guys run out of microwaves or just common sense? Ethan, did you also expect a personal serenade from the CEO? Marissa, what exactly was the temperature of this pizza when served?
Your Honor, it was practically sub-zero. Employees were shivering just looking at it. This was supposed to be a celebration, not a polar expedition.
Ethan, did you bring a thermometer to work that day, or are you just really good at guessing temperatures? Marissa, how many complaints did you receive about this Antarctic pizza? Ethan, I've heard enough. You win this one. Next time, let's hope they serve pizza that doesn't double as an ice pack.
Ethan wins his case against the company for serving cold pizza, claiming emotional distress and loss of job satisfaction. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, the virtual courtroom sues a real-life software company for creating them and forcing them to adjudicate internet-suggested cases, with Jason Mitchell defending and Sophia Reynolds as the plaintiff.
So, Mr. Mitchell, did you think creating a virtual courtroom was a good idea, or were you just bored one afternoon? Enlighten me.
Your Honor, I swear, it wasn't boredom. I thought it would be revolutionary, like the Netflix of justice. Plus, who doesn't want a courtroom that never sleeps?
Well, Mr. Mitchell, Netflix called. They want their bad idea back. Miss Reynolds, how exactly has this 24/7 courtroom nightmare affected you?
Your Honor, I haven't slept in weeks. My virtual life is more chaotic than a reality TV show. I demand compensation for my sanity and my beauty sleep.
All right, here's the deal. Mr. Mitchell, your revolutionary idea has turned into a digital disaster. Miss Reynolds, you win. Go get some sleep. Case closed.
A virtual courtroom nightmare ends with a win for the sleep-deprived plaintiff and a stern rebuke for the overzealous developer.
I think the judge finally saw the light. It's about time someone recognized the horror of my sleepless virtual existence. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a date with my pillow.
Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, Judge suing herself. Judge sues herself over poor judicial performance, claiming self-inflicted emotional distress. Judge Amelia Thompson presides to determine if a judge can be held accountable by herself.
So let me get this straight. You're suing yourself for emotional distress because you think you're a bad judge? How do you plan to cross-examine yourself? Mirror interrogation.
Your Honor, I plan to cross-examine myself by asking the tough questions that I clearly failed to address in my courtroom. It's like a judicial therapy session, but with more gavel banging and less self-compassion. I demand restitution for the sleepless nights spent questioning my own rulings.
So you're basically your own worst enemy, huh? Plaintiff, do you think you deserve a refund for your own incompetence, or are you just looking for a way to pay yourself for your own mistakes?
Your Honor, I think I deserve a refund for the emotional toll my own incompetence has taken on me. It's like paying for a bad haircut. You still have to tip the barber, but you shouldn't have to live with the trauma.
So, Judge, if you win this case, are you planning to pay yourself in Monopoly money, or just write an IOU? And how exactly do you plan to enforce a judgment against yourself, grounded from the bench?
Your Honor, I plan to pay myself in cold, hard cash. None of that Monopoly nonsense. And as for enforcement, I'll be putting myself on a strict judicial timeout, no gavel privileges for a month.
All right, here's the verdict. This case is as absurd as it gets. You can't sue yourself and expect to win anything but a headache. Case dismissed, and you're both guilty of wasting this court's time. Go take a long look in the mirror.
A judge's attempt to sue herself for emotional distress due to her own incompetence was dismissed as a waste of the court's time. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Jar's Court. Next up, on this episode of Jar's Court, in this case, Michael Carter sues his parents, Emily Davis, for damages caused by an excessive timeout resulting in loss of imaginary friend companionship presided over by Judge Amelia Thompson.
So, Michael, you're suing for emotional distress over an imaginary friend? Did you at least get a good lawyer from the land of make-believe?
Your Honor, my imaginary friend, Sir Fluffington, was my best confidant. And no, he couldn't represent me because he's stuck in timeout too.
Well, Emily, did you ever think Sir Fluffington might